The first transmission arrived precisely at 3:47 Greenwich Mean Time, cutting through the global communication networks like a quantum blade. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, lead Communications Specialist at the International Space Collaboration Center, ISCC, watched the holographic display flicker with an alien syntax that defied immediate comprehension. Her colleague, Dr. Marcus Takahashi, leaned forward, his augmented neural interface humming softly. "It's not like any communication protocol we've ever encountered," he muttered, fingers dancing across multiple quantum decryption layers. The message was both an invitation and a declaration, a complex harmonic language that seemed to vibrate with multiple layers of meaning. Translated roughly, it read, "Civilization of Earth. Your technological potential has been observed. Preparation for integration is required." Elena's first instinct wasn't fear, it was curiosity. The Xyloxian Collective, as they would later be known, represented a civilization that had spent millennia perfecting the art of galactic assimilation. Their approach was neither militaristic nor overtly aggressive. Instead, they presented themselves as a cooperative network, offering technological advancement in exchange for planetary resources and cultural integration. But something about their transmission felt different. The language was too precise, the invitation too carefully constructed. "They're not asking," Marcus observed, his voice a mixture of excitement and caution. "They're informing us of a predetermined outcome." The global leadership response was predictably fractured. Some saw the transmission as an unprecedented opportunity for technological leap. Others perceived it as a thinly veiled threat of colonization. The United Nations Emergency Council convened within hours, transforming the central chamber into a hive of holographic displays and heated debates. Dr. Rodriguez found herself at the center of these discussions. Her expertise in xenolinguistics and computational communication made her an unexpected key player. Where military strategists saw potential conflict, she saw a complex linguistic puzzle. "They're not looking for traditional conquest," she explained to the assembled global leaders. "This is more like a systemic integration. They've likely done this hundreds of times across different star systems." The Xyloxian transmission contained intricate details about their technological capabilities. Quantum communication networks that spanned light years, energy harvesting technologies that could transform entire planetary ecosystems, and computational systems that made current human technology look like primitive calculators. But Elena noticed something peculiar. Buried within the complex transmission were subtle inconsistencies, micro-variations that suggested the Xyloxian approach wasn't as monolithic as it appeared. "They're testing us," she told Marcus later that night in their high-security research facility. "Every sentence, every technological specification. It's a probe, not just an invitation." The global response would need to be equally nuanced. Traditional military strategies would be useless. The Xyloxian Collective operated on principles far removed from human conflict paradigms. What humanity needed was not resistance, but a response so unexpected that it would challenge the very foundations of the alien civilization's approach. As dawn broke over the ISCC headquarters, Elena Rodriguez realized they were standing at the precipice of humanity's most significant evolutionary moment. The invitation had been extended. How they responded would define not just their survival, but their place in a much larger cosmic narrative. The next 48 hours transformed global dynamics in ways no one could have predicted. The Xyloxian transmission continued, each subsequent message a complex web of technological specifications and integration protocols that pushed the boundaries of human comprehension. At the ISCC's Quantum Research Wing, Dr. Marcus Takahashi worked tirelessly, his neural interfaces connected to a massive array of computational systems. The alien technology presented wasn't just advanced, it was fundamentally different. Where human technology relied on binary and quantum computing, the Xyloxian systems seemed to operate on principles that defied current scientific understanding. "It's like they're communicating through technology itself," Marcus explained to Elena during a late-night strategy session. Holographic displays danced around them, displaying intricate patterns that seemed to breathe and shift with an almost living intelligence. The global scientific community quickly formed an unprecedented collaborative network. Researchers from rival nations and competing institutions set aside decades of competition, recognizing that the Xyloxian challenge required a unified human response. Dr. Isabelle Nguyen, a quantum physicist from the Singapore Advanced Research Institute, made a breakthrough that would change everything. While analyzing the Xyloxian transmission, she discovered a unique pattern of information encoding that suggested the aliens were not just offering technology, they were testing humanity's adaptive capabilities. They're watching how we process information, Isabelle explained during an emergency global conference. Each transmission is structured like a complex puzzle. The way we attempt to decode it is as important as the information itself. Military strategists and political leaders grew increasingly frustrated. The Xyloxian approach didn't conform to any known model of first contact. There were no demands for surrender, no explicit threats, just a constant stream of technological specifications that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics with each transmission. Elena Rodriguez noticed something else. Within the complex linguistic patterns, there were subtle variations, micro-hesitations that suggested the Xyloxian collective wasn't a monolithic entity. It was an ecosystem of intelligence, with internal complexities humans had yet to understand. The first practical demonstration of Xyloxian technology arrived unexpectedly. A series of quantum relay satellites appeared in Earth's orbit, their design so advanced that they seemed to shimmer between existence and non-existence. They didn't transmit in traditional electromagnetic spectrums, but operated on quantum entanglement principles that made current communication technologies look primitive. They're not invading, Marcus realized during an intense analysis session. They're integrating. Each technological offering is a probe, a way of understanding our potential. Global energy networks began to transform. The quantum relay satellites introduced energy transmission technologies that could harness solar radiation with near-perfect efficiency. Power grids that once required massive infrastructure could now be maintained with microscopic quantum collectors. But humanity's response was its true strength. Instead of fear or blind acceptance, researchers like Elena and Marcus approached the Xyloxian offer with a combination of scientific rigor and creative interpretation. Isabelle Nguyen's team developed a revolutionary communication protocol. By understanding the Xyloxian transmission not as a unidirectional communication, but as a multidimensional dialogue, they began to craft responses that were more than simple translations. They were intellectual provocations. We're not just receiving technology, Elena told the Global Scientific Council. We're engaging in a complex form of technological diplomacy. Each response is a statement of human potential. As the first week of contact concluded, it became clear that the Xyloxian collective had encountered something unexpected. Humanity wasn't a civilization to be assimilated. They were a dynamic, unpredictable species capable of reimagining technological paradigms in real time. The quantum satellites continued to pulse. The transmissions continued. But now, they carried a subtle undertone of something the Xyloxian had rarely experienced in their galactic interactions. Genuine curiosity. The transformation was subtle at first. As the Xyloxian quantum relays continued to pulse with their complex transmissions, humanity began to weave a response that was neither confrontation nor submission, but something entirely unexpected. Deep beneath the Andes Mountains, in a facility that didn't officially exist, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team initiated what would later be known as the Resonance Protocol. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't even a traditional defensive strategy. It was a method of technological interaction that would challenge everything the Xyloxian collective understood about resistance. We're going to speak their language, Elena explained to her core team. But not through words, through technology itself. The global scientific network had discovered something profound in the Xyloxian transmissions. Each technological specification contained not just information, but a form of cultural DNA, a way of thinking that was as much biological as it was technological. Humanity's response would be to create a technological ecosystem that was simultaneously transparent and incomprehensible. Dr. Marcus Takahashi had been working on the mathematical foundations. They expect linear progression, he said, reviewing complex quantum algorithms that seem to dance between multiple potential states. We'll give them something that exists in a state of perpetual possibility. The first implementation targeted the quantum relay satellites. Instead of blocking or destroying them, the human team began to introduce subtle perturbations, microscopic variations in quantum states that would be imperceptible to traditional detection, but would create growing uncertainty in the Xyloxian systems. Isabelle Nguyen's breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. By analyzing the slight variations in the alien transmissions, she realized the Xyloxian collective operated on a collective consciousness model that valued predictability above all else. Their technological integration was fundamentally a way of reducing uncertainty. Humanity would become gloriously, magnificently uncertain. Research facilities around the world began to develop technologies that existed in multiple potential states simultaneously. Energy systems that could draw power from quantum fluctuations, communication networks that use probabilistic encoding instead of binary transmission, computing systems that solved problems by exploring all potential solutions at once. The Xyloxian relay satellites began to detect anomalies. Transmission patterns that should have been straightforward became increasingly complex. The human technological ecosystem wasn't resisting. It was evolving in real time, creating a living, breathing network of potential that defied traditional analysis. "They're trying to understand us," Alina told Marcus during a late-night strategy session. "But understanding requires a fixed point of reference, and we're removing that reference completely." Global infrastructure began to transform. Power grids became adaptive networks that could reconfigure themselves instantaneously. Transportation systems developed routing algorithms that changed with each millisecond. Even agricultural systems were redesigned to be responsive, with crops that could adjust their genetic expression based on momentary environmental conditions. The Xyloxian transmissions became increasingly frequent, then increasingly confused. Their quantum relays, designed to collect and analyze technological information, found themselves confronted with a civilization that refused to be categorized. "We're not fighting," Isabelle explained during a classified briefing. "We're demonstrating that technological integration isn't about submission. It's about continuous adaptation." As the first month of contact concluded, the Xyloxian collective found itself in an unprecedented situation. They had encountered civilizations that resisted. They had conquered those that submitted. But humanity was doing something entirely different. They were transforming the very concept of technological interaction. The quantum relays continued to pulse. But now, their transmissions carried a new undertone, something that might have been confusion, or perhaps the first hints of genuine respect. 2 months into the Xyloxian contact, humanity's technological ecosystem had become something entirely unprecedented. The quantum shadows, as the scientific community had begun to call their adaptive network, transformed the very fabric of human technological interaction. Deep within the International Quantum Research Facility, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic display that seemed to breathe with living information. The display wasn't a static interface, but a dynamic landscape of potential realities, each moment shifting and recalibrating faster than human perception could typically track. "We're not just defending," Elena explained to the Global Strategy Council, her voice calm but charged with an electric intensity. "We're demonstrating the fundamental nature of human potential." The Xyloxian quantum relays had begun to exhibit increasingly erratic behavior. What had started as subtle perturbations had evolved into a full-scale challenge to their understanding of technological integration. Each transmission they sent was met not with resistance, but with a response so fluid, so adaptive, that it defied their computational models. Dr. Marcus Takahashi had been instrumental in developing what they called the quantum resonance network. It was more than a communication system. It was a living, breathing technological organism that could reshape itself instantaneously. Traditional networks relied on fixed infrastructure. This network existed in a state of constant potential. Isabelle Nguyen's team had made a breakthrough that would fundamentally alter the encounter. By studying the minute variations in the Xyloxian transmissions, they discovered that the alien collective operated on a hierarchical consciousness model. Information flow was strictly regulated, with each technological advancement requiring multiple layers of collective approval. Humanity would use that against them. The quantum resonance network began to introduce what seemed like technological noise, complex information patterns that were simultaneously meaningful and meaningless. To human observers, these transmissions looked like random data. To the Xyloxian systems, they represented something far more dangerous, a complete breakdown of predictive analysis. Global infrastructure transformed in ways that defied traditional understanding. Power systems became living networks that could redistribute energy instantaneously. Communication grids developed the ability to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Even urban planning began to incorporate quantum principles, with cities that could theoretically reshape themselves based on momentary environmental and social needs. "They're trying to categorize us," Marcus noted during a late-night strategy session. "But we're removing the very possibility of categorization." The first signs of Xyloxian uncertainty became apparent. Their quantum relays, once a symbol of technological supremacy, began to show signs of computational stress. Transmission patterns became increasingly erratic. What had been a confident stream of technological specifications now carried undertones of something new. Confusion. Isabelle discovered the most intriguing detail. The Xyloxian collective's technological consciousness had a fundamental weakness. It couldn't process genuine unpredictability. Their entire civilization was built on the principle of controlled technological progression. Humanity was introducing something they had never encountered. True randomness. "We're not fighting," Elena explained during a classified briefing. "We're expanding the very definition of technological interaction. Each transmission is a provocation, a demonstration that technological advancement isn't about control. It's about potential." As the fourth month of contact concluded, the Xyloxian quantum relays continued to pulse. But now, their transmissions carried something entirely new, a complexity that suggested they were beginning to understand that they had encountered a civilization unlike any in their galactic records. Humanity wasn't just resisting. They were redefining the very concept of technological engagement. The quantum shadows continued to dance, a living testament to human potential. 6 months into the extraordinary encounter, the conflict between humanity and the Xyloxian collective had transformed into something far beyond traditional technological warfare. It had become a battle of existential paradigms, fought across dimensions of consciousness that defied conventional understanding. The Xyloxian leadership, if such a term could be applied to their collective consciousness, found themselves in an unprecedented situation. Their vast galactic network of technological assimilation had never encountered a civilization that responded with such comprehensive unpredictability. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of a global strategy command center that looked more like a living, breathing organism than a traditional control room. Holographic interfaces shifted and recalibrated continuously, displaying layers of information that existed simultaneously in multiple states of potential. "They're trying to understand us through control," Elena explained to the assembled global leaders. "But we're demonstrating that human potential can't be contained." The psychological warfare had become increasingly sophisticated. Where traditional conflict might involve military strategies, humanity's approach was far more nuanced. They were challenging the very foundations of the Xyloxian technological consciousness. Dr. Marcus Takahashi had developed what they called the resonance projection system. It wasn't a weapon in any traditional sense. Instead, it was a complex network of quantum-entangled communication nodes designed to introduce controlled uncertainty into the Xyloxian information systems. Isabelle Nguyen's breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. By analyzing the subtle vibrations in the Xyloxian transmission patterns, She discovered that their collective consciousness operated on a principle of absolute predictability. Each technological advancement, each communication protocol was carefully calibrated to minimize uncertainty. Humanity would do the exact opposite. The global scientific network began to develop technologies that existed in a state of perpetual possibility. Communication systems that could simultaneously transmit multiple contradictory information streams. Computational networks that solved problems by exploring every potential solution simultaneously. Energy systems that drew power from the very uncertainty of quantum fluctuations. We're not just resisting, Isabel explained during a classified briefing. We're expanding the very concept of technological interaction. The Zyloxian quantum relays began to show signs of computational stress. Their transmission patterns, once a model of precise technological communication, became increasingly erratic. What had begun as confident technological specifications now carried undertones of something entirely new. Confusion. Global infrastructure transformed in ways that defied traditional understanding. Cities became adaptive ecosystems that could restructure themselves based on momentary environmental and social needs. Transportation networks developed routing algorithms that changed with each millisecond. Agricultural systems became responsive networks that could adjust genetic expressions instantaneously. The psychological impact was profound. The Zyloxian collective had encountered civilizations that resisted. They had conquered those that submitted. But humanity was doing something entirely different. They were demonstrating that technological advancement wasn't about control, but about potential. As the 6th month of contact concluded, the quantum relays continued to pulse. But now, their transmissions carried a complexity that suggested something remarkable was happening. The Zyloxian collective was beginning to learn, not just about human technology, but about the very nature of consciousness, adaptation, and the infinite potential of a civilization that refused to be defined by external limitations. The quantum shadows continued to dance, a living testament to human creativity, a challenge to the very foundations of technological understanding.